Aberration, the third official story map to ARK Survival Evolved, and arguably one of the toughest maps to survive on, releasing way back in 2017. Aberration is one of the most unique maps in that it's set almost entirely underground, being set on a broken ark. It's certainly one of the hardest to new players, with the lack of flyers and nightmare to transfer off this death trap of a map. But once you've overcome the fear of this daunting map, it can be one of the best, with some great hidden base locations. If you think outside the box, looking at all the jagged walls and ceilings that litter the map. Aberration introduces a new earthquake system that not only shakes you about and becomes a real pain to deal with, but also drops you little bits of loot. Another new feature to the map is that it has a 3-day time cycle, where day and night will take their own percentage of the day. And why? Because the surface is filled with death warranting fire, and you're requiring it to be night to access some of the best loot and resources on this map. Moving away from the prehistoric dinos that we know of the island and towards a more fantasy setting, almost all of the creatures introduced to Aberration are new, if you include the aberrant variants of the dinos you know on other maps. But it brings a new wealth of dinos that really changed the meta at the time, with powerful gliding rock drakes and feared if not countered reapers, with nameless littering the floor, awaiting to ambush you at any point in time unless you adopt the new system of using light to keep them at bay, more often than not by taming the light pets that are littered around the map. Aberration also introduces a new wealth of engrams and resources that you're going to require to take on this map, and even a new way of gaining element as opposed to the boss runs we know on the other maps. And it also introduced a new system of power, batteries, to be used in those moments of crisis. You're right kids, it's Raasclark and welcome to episode 5 of my Map Survivor Guides. Today we are taking on the feared Aberration. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, share around, and let's get into it. So the biomes are very different on this map. Like the obelisk system, there's a colour to identify what area of difficulty you're in, with the green zone being the easiest area and definitely where you'll start out, with access to a lot of creatures, and you'll certainly want to run for a light pet as soon as possible. The blue zone ramping up the difficulty, with wide spans of water and nameless at every turn if you don't have a light pet with you. You'll also find a lot more dizzy spores that could be life-threatening if you're not equipped with the right gear or food. And then the red zone, the hardest zone in Aberration. Why? Because it's full of radiation wherever you go, requiring you to wear a hazard suit or perhaps a lamprey, because without those it will mean the death of you and possibly the dino you're riding, as there's only a specific amount of creatures that can go into the hazard zone without taking damage. This is also the zone where you'll find Reaper Queens, not to be confused with surface Reapers, as Reaper Queens are the ones you'll need if you want your own Reaper. And throughout the zone is element infused water that you certainly don't want to go swimming in, as it will mean the death of you. And right at the bottom of the red zone is the Drake Nest, where you'll need to go if you want to grab one of those Drake eggs. The surface areas, of which there are 3, designating the 3 obelisks that you can transfer out on. However, I would highly discourage it, as you'll be fending off Reapers at the same time, 2 of which have multiple points of access and can be quite a dangerous place to go if you're not ready and equipped. But once you are, it's a great place to run drops, with the rare red drops being a laborious but great way to get some of those top BPs. But as I said, don't transfer out at the surface. You can certainly try, but you might fail, which limits you to the loot crates that spawn throughout the map. Working like drops on other maps, they spawn in specific locations and you can learn the route and understand where they spawn, so if you do want to transfer out, it's certainly possible to do so. The dino level spawns on Aberration aren't great, sadly. It's very much like the island, that you're going to be grinding and killing a lot of dinos before you find those high levels. As mentioned, drakes, they work like wyverns that you need to grab an egg from their nest and then raise it. And really the best way to get a drake egg is unfortunately with a drake. So that first egg is going to be a challenge. And whilst it is just possible on foot with a wingsuit and hazard gear, you're likely going to want to take something strong like a megalo or a spino that can keep those drakes at bay. Reaper Queens, a very unique addition to ARK in how to tame because you don't tame them. They're required to be damaged to their last 2000 health, at which point they'll decide to impregnate you, with you birthing your baby Reaper right out of your chest like something out of Aliens, and you'll want to ensure you've killed many dinos before that baby Reaper pops out, so you can get as many pre-levels on that Reaper as possible. There's so many more unique creatures introduced to Aberration, such as the basilisks that require rock drake eggs to tame, and many more, with a lot of dinos from other maps not being allowed to be transferred and downloaded onto this map. So you will need to get to know the wildlife on this map. There's a lot of pros and cons to resource gathering on Aberration, that it's one of the best for farming metal, and certainly black pearls if you know how to do it. But there's a few that are much harder to get on this map in comparison to the others. As I mentioned, it's got its own element system, requiring you to find a charge station littered throughout the map, inserting the materials required. But it's definitely a grind, with you being able to craft element in these roughly every 42 minutes. So you'll want to multitask many charge stations at once. Spawning on Aberration could be the death of you if you don't know where to spawn. Most of the edge spawns will certainly see you face hostile creatures, and whilst Portal is the recommended spawn to use, it's the one to avoid, as not only may you encounter a hostile creature, but it's where everyone spawns, so in a PvP scenario, I would avoid Portal at all costs. Recommending Fertile Lake 1 or 2, and Edge 1 can also be a decent spawn. Overcoming Aberration, you'll find many fantastic hidden base locations on Aberration. It's probably one of the best for hidden spots due to the immense amount of foliage and rocks and dark areas and cracks that you can hide away in, with most of them being quite elevated, so make sure you've got plenty of climbing picks handy. Pushing towards alpha status, there's many large flat areas around the high spots in the blue zone, giving you some vertical advantage against your foes, but of course being plain as day, and possibly defending nameless after nameless after nameless. The surface entrances are seen as one of the most contested spots to use. With the right tribe and the right defense, these narrow corridors can make for great spots to build. But beware, you will be making enemies right from the off, blocking their access to the surface to run those drops. And once you've hit tech tier, don't overlook the hazard zone, because you can live anywhere in there as long as you've got a tech force field running, which means there are some brilliant hidden areas in such a difficult place to simply stroll through. The artifact caves can make for great base spots as well, with the cave for the Artifact of the Shadows being one of the best in the game due to the many underwater areas, crouch points and vertical drops. Jumping into the resources now, as I said, this is the best for metal, as the blue zone is littered with metal everywhere. You certainly won't struggle for metal on this map. Obsidian, whilst there is a little bit in the blue area, you'll want to work towards farming it at the surface, once you're of course equipped and ready. Crystals are in abundance on Aberration, as the map offers a new gem system, with each of these gems offering you a little bit of crystal once farmed, with green gems being littered around the green zone, blue gems being littered around the blue zone, and you guessed it, red gems being littered throughout the red zone. Sadly, there is no dams to collect paste from on this map because there are no beavers, so you're limited to crafting them. And starting out, you'll certainly want to farm the keratin that you can get from the bones in the surface entrances. And once ready to tackle the tanks of Aberration, the Karkinos, you can get an abundance of chitin and poly, especially if you harvest them with a chainsaw. Oil is a tough resource to get, with you limited to the Drake Nest or the surfaces. And two of the best spots for silica pearls are going to be either the lake by Portal or Fertile Lake, being very near the shore. And down where all the drakes live, near the nests, along the illuminated pink river, is the home to many black pearls. And once you're in a position where you don't fear drakes anymore, get down there with a whip as you will farm a lot. New to Aberration, and you'll need them gas balls, whereby you'll need to find these gas veins littered throughout the map, and you simply needing to craft a gas collector that you can place on top of the vein and a weight to collect your balls. And element ore needed to craft elements in the charge stations. You will find them in the red zone and the Drake Nest, but if you're going to the surface for that oil, you might as well get some element ore on the way. Aberration also introduces new consumables, mushrooms, of which there are 4 types, and like yellow snow, you don't want to eat the wrong one, because acerbic will inflict instant hypothermia, auric mushrooms will inflict hallucination, which can be deadly, giving you side effects like colourful vision, uncontrollable direction change, constant defecation and increased hunger, as well as suffocating like you're underwater. But the other 2 shrooms can be beneficial, the aquatic mushroom providing you water and temporary immunity to the freezing debuff or luminous poisons, and also being an early great way to tame bulb dogs, the first light pets you'll probably tame. And agaravic mushrooms provide temporary immunity to the hallucinating debuff, so it's worth keeping at least those 2 in your hotbar. The boss of Aberration is very unique in that it doesn't offer you any element, although it can be a great way to unlock some tech grams, and of course Ascend, giving you an extra 15 levels to your character, and is a very easy boss to beat, providing you've got some powerful shotguns to take down those tentacles quick, with some methods out there showing you how to do it on foot. And to run the boss, you'll need 3 artifacts, as well of course as the apex items, all of which I would encourage you to get elsewhere, as there are maps that they are much easier to get on. These caves are rough, with the easiest one being the Artifact of the Depths, located near Portal, and also being the only cave to house glowtails. But it's a very challenging cave in its own right. Next up, we've got the Artifact of the Shadows, as mentioned being a great base location because it's a nasty cave to attempt to get that artifact, with you having to be equipped for all events in a very long winding cavern that will certainly challenge the best of you if you are doing this on foot. And the third and final artifact, the Artifact of the Stalker, is almost impossible without a Drake, already being difficult enough being in the red hazard zone. You're faced with clumps of hostile creatures and giant leaps of faith as you attempt to get one of the most unreachable artifacts in any cave. And I wish you well if you're going to attempt all of these. And that's the end of the Aberration guide. Thanks all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Drop a comment below, let me know if you did. Don't forget to hit that like button, it really does do wonders. I'll see you with the next one. The ending that didn't become an ending after all. Extinction, the 4th official map. My name's Raasclark. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and as always, peace out.